In our last video, we saw how God's throne in heaven would be established, a process that required the implementation of a plan that has been days in the making. And I don't mean 24-hour days, but 1,000-year days. This plan extends to the earth because once his throne has been established in heaven, which will happen once the rapture has occurred, the question then becomes, how is his kingdom established on the earth? Well, for that, we need to tell a story. And the story pertains to the people of Israel, who would be torn and stricken, who would fall and be cast away, but only for 2 days, at which point they would then be healed and bandaged, revived, and they would be fully accepted again and grafted back into the tree they once belonged to. This is their story, as it is also, in a shadowy sense, the story of Elisha, who picked up the mantle of Elijah once he was taken up in a chariot of fire. The Bible is very clear that there is now a strategic event that occurs in which Israel, the remnant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, return to the Lord. They are the branch that was broken off in unbelief. But when we are raised up and resurrected, that's when they return to the Lord. Hosea chapter 6. Our third-day resurrection, their third-day revival, they return to the Lord. He heals and bandages them, and he receives them back in. And that's what we see here in Romans chapter 11, where in verse 11 it says, have they stumbled that they should fall? And in the Greek there it says, check it out in other translations, it says, have they stumbled that they should utterly fall? Obviously they've fallen. This is the falling away. But they haven't utterly fallen. They're not fallen away for good, because he goes on to describe, no, this was something that happened. All of this came to us as Gentiles. Through their fall, we became rich and so forth. And verse 15 is significant because it says, if they're being cast away is the reconciling or resulted in the reconciling of the world. After all, when they refused the Messiah, then the offer was made to the Gentiles, wasn't it? Paul and the others. It was always available to any Jewish person that would believe, but primarily this was and has been a 2-day or 2,000-year gospel campaign in which, in type and shadow, it fulfills how Jesus went to the Samaritans. He left the sheep of Israel, the house of Israel, for 2 days and had a great revival in Samaria. And it says very eloquently that he stayed there 2 days. It states that 2 times. And so this whole past 2,000 years has been a 2-day gospel campaign in which Jesus left the house of Israel, so to speak, to concentrate primarily on the Gentiles. So if they're being cast away, verse 15 is the reconciling of the world. That's what we got in return. Then the question, and this is the $1 million question, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? In other words, there will be a time when they are accepted back, or as he says in verse 23, they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, will be grafted back in. Verse 24 is significant, for if we, Gentiles, were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into this cultivated olive tree, how much more, this is the significant phrase, how much more will these, referring to the remnant of Jews who now return to the Lord, how much more will those natural branches be able to be grafted back into their own olive tree? And then verse 25 is very significant. For I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own opinion. And the mystery is this, and this is a mystery that has been in operation for the past 2,000 years, these 2 days in this Samaritan revival, so to speak. And the mystery is that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. So blindness in part, what's that mean? It means there's been a temporary blindness, but it's in part. It's not permanent. It's not forever, because there is an until. And so this blindness is there. It's happened to Israel, but only until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. And this is evident in some other passages, one in particular that I want to take you to, because it really reinforces this. This is the Elisha group that are going to take the mantle from the Elijah group, the church. Once we're taken up to heaven in chariots of fire, there's got to be a group down here that are represented and typified by Elisha, who take up the mantle during this last 1,000-year days. That explains why we're up there and they're down here. They're the ones who are going to rule from Jerusalem, make it a praise in all the earth, and who are going to preach the gospel with great power, with signs, miracles, and wonders in this age to come. No wonder a sinner will die at 100 and everyone will say, "What? He died so young." Why? Because there's going to be such miracles, might and power, the raising of the dead and so forth, once this remnant of Israel received the double anointing that was on Elijah. And they're going to do twice as much down here for this 1,000-year day. But here's the passage that another one, I'm giving you all of these witnesses, such as Hosea 6 and so forth. But this one is very beautiful. It comes from Micah chapter 5, and beginning with verse 2. "But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth are from of old, from everlasting." Of course, we all know who that is. Who was born in Bethlehem? Who was the one who came forth from of old, who has been there forever? The Word that was made flesh, the Word that was with God, the Word that was God. Well, of course, that's Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth, God come in the flesh, walking among us, born in Bethlehem. He's the one who is to become and has become ruler in Israel. But verse 3 says, "Therefore he shall give them up." For how long? "Until the time that she who is in labor has given birth. Then the remnant of his brethren shall return to the children of Israel, and he shall stand and feed his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord," and so forth. The important thing is there is a giving them up phrase. And this is what ties and links with Romans chapter 11. Have they utterly fallen? No. God just allowed them to be broken off of the vine. They were torn and stricken, but with the idea in view of the fact that this would not be permanent, but that on the third day they would be bandaged and healed and revived. They would return to the Lord. So there is a breaking from the vine, and then there is a grafting back in. And this is expressing the same truth, that he will give them up, give up his people, but only for a time. Well, for how long? How long will they be given up? Until she who is in labor, the nation of Israel, the woman in Revelation chapter 12, until she has given birth. Then the remnant of his brethren shall return. I can't express more strongly that this chapter in Micah has to link hand in hand with Revelation chapter 12, where we see the woman, she's crying out in pain and labor to give birth. Obviously, this is the nation of Israel in the final throes of her trouble, her birth pains, the dragon with the 7 heads and the 10 horns is right there to devour her and her baby. Of course, that's an illustration, that's a representation of the Antichrist having come on the scene. He's risen up. He has gained control over all 10 kings. That's why there's 10 horns on the 7 heads. So this is a picture of the Antichrist primed and ready to rise up on the scene as we come to this last 7th day. And he's going to devour the woman, but she gives birth, right? And who does she give birth to? Well, she gives birth to a male child. But there's something very special and significant and prophetic about this male child, because even though it speaks of Christ, we know that Jesus was the child in Isaiah 66 who was born without any pain before she was in even labor. Read it. Check it out. Jesus was born from the dead. That happened apart from any pain and labor on the part of the woman. That's why Isaiah 66 speaks of 2 miracle births, one without pain and one in the midst of pain. And the difference is one represents Jesus as the head of this new man, and the other speaks of the church, his body, which together makes up this one new man who's going to rule as God's forever heir. I hope you can get this. This is deep stuff. This is real stuff. This is not the foolish stuff that we've been taught where, we didn't know what we were really talking about. But this is end of the age truth being opened up, blossoming out like a flower so you can see it in all of its perfection. So he gives them up. The one who was born from Bethlehem, he, the ruler of Israel, gives them up, his people, but only for a time, until she who is in labor gives birth. And when she gives birth, that represents the rapture of the church, because just as Jesus was born from the dead, i.e. resurrection, but not just any kind of resurrection, but the kind in which you can say, I was dead, but now I'm alive. What, to die again like Lazarus? No. This being birthed from death is to be raised, never to die again. I'm going to repeat it. Never to die again. That's what it means to be born from the dead. You cannot die ever again. Jesus is the firstborn from the dead, and he's the only one so far, but the Bible says he's going to be the firstborn among many brethren. Because when the rapture takes place, we also receive a glorified body like unto his, and we are born from the dead as well, and then seated with the others in heaven to establish this throne that rules over all. And so, as it says in Romans 11, Paul had a very significant insight into this, because he made this statement. I'll end with this. In verse 15 of chapter 11, he says, if they're being cast away, which is when he gives them up, if their being cast away resulted in the reconciling of the world, what in the world will happen when they are accepted back in to this vine, when he no longer gives them up? What does that mean in end-time prophecy, in the scheme of things? Well, for us as the church, it means life from the dead. That's when Jesus comes. That's when we are raised incorruptible, and he changes our vile body like unto his glorious body. For those who are here on the earth, the remnant of Israel, life from the dead means that they are born again. Their spirit is recreated and made new, just like ours was, and they are grafted back into the vine, into the family of God. So there is the Elisha group. They pick up the mantle of Elijah, who has now been just taken to heaven in a chariot of fire. And here we have the scenario. That's why we don't need to be down here on the earth, as all of our faulty, flawed end-time teachings have told us. We need to change things. We need to rearrange the puzzle, pull up a few pieces and put them back right where they belong, and build the puzzle correctly. We need, and this is an end of the age coming, as Jesus promised, but it's where we are taken up to heaven, which none of our prophetic positions right now can account for. But this is the true one. Can you handle the truth? That's my question. Or are you content with your flawed interpretations, which are soon to be proven wrong very shortly? So the fact that he's coming at the end of this age is linked to 1,000-year days. That means that the 6,000 years from Adam are almost up. It's just about time for him to come and the rapture to take place. It will be preceded by the invasion of Israel by the Antichrist and his 10 kings in response to the rebuilt temple and the resumption of the temple sacrifices. That will trigger his coming, and when he comes, of course, to receive his bride and take us back in chariots of fire, that's when he will split the Mount of Olives, providing a way of escape for the remnant of Israel. They will flee through that mountain valley, as it clearly depicts in Revelation chapter 12, by the way. That's how these all link up together. And that's how they will begin their third-day revival. In other words, this is all about to happen very soon.